Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. We're here at Charlie's Collectible Show in Stone Mountain, Georgia for their Lorcana 10K. We're entering into the top 8. Really excited to be here today and to see the top 8 players in today's competition. Congratulations to everyone who came out, but to especially our top 8 players. Jebas, I'm excited to get into this round.
I am too. We actually get to see a deck that we have not actually gotten a chance to view at all, and it is against our community voted pro. NIOIMNOT, so should be a pretty exciting game.
I'm excited, and again, all of NIOIMNOT's matches, being that community pro voted by you, the viewers at home on the 20 Lore Pro Discord, will be available to you on YouTube later on this week. Let's jump on over into NIOIMNOT's match to see how both of these competitors play. Well, Tex, I believe, is Tristan, was a popular player, as mentioned in the Twitch chat. Excited to see him play here in the top 8 against a former Charlie's Collectible Show champion, NIOIMNOT. We were looking at the top 8 players, and we did see DeCandio, no surprise there, being 7-1. He was also within the top 8. He's playing Amethyst Steel. Maybe we'll see him into the top 4, but we'll let y'all know how he does. This was a closed deck list going into the top 8, so not every player's colors were shown, but we do know that we have this Amethyst Steel and Ruby Amethyst in NIOIMNOT and Tex.
We thought we'd take a look at some purple steel and see how that looks. Been doing pretty well this weekend, so I'm excited to see the face-off of the classic set 2 red purple versus the sort of newer purple steel, which has been doing mixed results throughout the last few sets. We'll see how that looks today.
I know that they have some strong characters, Mr. Smee, Calhoun, things that we've seen in previous steel lineups, mixed in with the powerful bounce package that we see in Amethyst. So I talked to JDRR over on the 20 Lore Pro YouTube channel. He's a great member of the 20 Lore Pro community, does deck techs and coaching. But JDRR did a deck tech with us over Amethyst Steel, had 3 different variants, really talked about the power of White Rose being another copy of a pseudo goat, along with in Steel a variant that played 2 to 3 copies of Gontu. Gontu can be this strong character that comes down on turn 5 that if your opponent doesn't have an answer for, can quest for 4. That's really, a ton of lore that they've been trying to work up to and then can get with Gontu to try to close out the game.
Alright, looks like we're kicking it off. I would assume NIOIMNOT gets to go first, given that he's in the 4th seed here. It leads off on a broom. Now, the first couple turns generally decide sort of how the flow of this game is going to go. There's a Diablo here. Not a very aggressive card, but it does put some lore on the board and replace itself, which is generally pretty nice. Now, both of these 1-drops do enable things like Snake. Generally, there's a lot more higher strength and willpower characters out of the Amber Steel deck on turn 2. But Kendall did find the Snake, so runs out of 3/3.
Yeah, we've already seen the power that Calhoun has had onto Mr. Smee being a 3/3. Both can gain you some lore that you need, and here's that Calhoun.
Alright, just goes to quest with the Diablo. For the most part, Diablo as a card is one that you can just quest with impunity and it just replaces itself. So you collect your 1 lore, Snake trades into it, not a big deal. Now Calhoun will have to trade with Snake, but it does gain 2 lore in the process. So I would assume that that's what we'll do here. Yep, absolutely. So it goes up to 3. I think these turns so far have played out pretty typically how I think a lot of them will go for the first couple of rounds here. So that's the 1-drop Maleficent, biding her time. Very lore-dense character, not quite as impactful as something like a Daisy, but it does, a very similar effect with the lore density for the one cost, and a SME. So a pretty standard run out here. They're kind of just throwing their characters against each other here, and just draws 4 cards this turn.
Yeah, trading back and forth can be just a little scary, I think, for Tristan in the sense that NIOIMNOT can eventually get enough ink to where he's double playing strong characters that are going to be able to challenge in effectively with those lower cost characters that Tristan has. Hopefully he's able to get up higher to where he's playing his Tinkerbells that can survive, challenge well, and quest well. We'll see what happens.
Now, I would say it's very rare that you want to be casting Friends on the Other Side just as a raw card, especially this early. So my assumption is that NIOIMNOT's hand is very ink light, and he's just making sure that he's not missing those ink drops this early on, and making sure that the flow of cards is still there. So SME plus Crab takes out the Sisu, goes in, gains the 2 off the Maleficent, and then just passes it back. Opting to keep the Maleficent over the SME, most likely because it's a 1-drop. So then if we do run into a spot where we have to bounce it maybe with a Fox, that we still have those resources available. It's another hand Sisu down, inks a Chernabog's follower, and just sends it back. So yeah, most likely our red-purple hand here is a little high-costed. Looks like I see a Dragonfire, maybe a Medusa in there. Here's that gone to. Turn 5 rolls around, drops the 4/3 that can quest for 4. Now, 4 strength is a very important breakpoint against red-purple. So generally, your response to that could be something like a Medusa, but 4 doesn't really work against that. Then that's how it's been for quite a while now. So specifically against red-purple here, it is a very, very impactful card. Oh, but there's that Dragonfire. We've seen it been putting in work kind of all weekend.
Yeah, I wonder how many copies that he is playing, because we've seen for sure the 1. I haven't seen him play 2 in 1 match in the tournament, but it does a lot of work, like right here we just saw.
Being uninkable, I think it's rare to want to run more than 1 copy. Usually it'll replace something like your additional copies of Tremaine or Medusa, as a little bit lower cost, kind of unconditional. It is the most unconditional removal spell in the entire game right now. But it costs 5 and it's uninkable, so it is, it's not free to run it, but it definitely, if you just want to be able to remove whatever, that'll do it for you.
I was also thinking that during that play, he had a Sisu on board. He could have played Elsa Fifth Spirit to tap down the Gontu and then challenge into it, but just a cleaner answer here in the form of Dragonfire.
So let's keep the Elsa to maybe deal with the Maleficent later. Now, tax is already up to 10, and as we've known, as with most Amethyst decks, they have a lot of reach once they get kind of in that 16, 17 range. That's kind of the danger zone. So Fox does end up resetting the Maleficent, kind of like I thought might happen. Because it's a cheaper card than Smee, it's not taking, the free damage just from it being exerted. It gets reset here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that Elsa come down and actually take it out at this point. It also makes the play of the Fox untapping it a lot less impactful too. So we quest, get our 1, runs out a Snake to replay it. Well, this works too. This actually keeps the Elsa in hand to be able to follow up with something else, and it's a little bit more ink efficient, and it adds a 3/3 to the board. Not too bad. I'm going to see a lot of bouncing back and forth in this matchup, I think, with the double Amethyst. Ooh, here's the power of the Steel alongside our Amethyst, which is Doc. We've seen a lot of Doc this weekend. It's a card that has been seeing a little bit of play in the previous sets, and has just gotten more and more. The more efficient the threats become, the more efficient your various characters are, the better that Doc ends up becoming. Ooh, and here's that Sisu.
Gosh.
The Sisu and the Dragonfire that we've been seeing out of NIOIMNOT's list this weekend are not always in the red-purple, but they have been pulling so much weight.
Oh, and another Gantu. Yeah, Sisu really doing a lot of work right there for NIOIMNOT. That's just... I think he just plays the one of, but even getting to recur the amount of Medusa like he did earlier, he has a recursion if he needs to with the Sisu. It just creates a lot of lines for him to be able to respond to what Tex is doing.
I would expect maybe a Be Prepared here. Yep.
There it is.
And given that we didn't sing it with the Sisu, I would assume that there's not a great follow-up, or at least not an expensive follow-up. You know, unlike with Blue-Red, there's a lot less individually impactful follow-ups here. Runs out a goat. Genie. Genie's a very strong play here. Not only does it keep the cards flowing, but it is a very aggressive lore gainer. Opts to cash in to draw some more cards, and draws even further cards. You know, and I think that that's a bit of a concession to say, I really need to make sure that I can answer what they're doing, because we're a bit behind on lore. You know, we're going to untap, Goat's going to go up even further, and there's plenty of 1-drops that we can draw on the deck. Comes out a Shadowbug's Follower and Inks the Brawl, which I think is reasonable. The cards that we care about are not always brawlable, and we need to keep that ink going so that we can play double spell more consistently. Because we can always cash in the Shadowbug's Followers next turn to draw, you know, even more cards. You know, if we pick up a Genie or a Rabbit, all of a sudden our card quantity is very high. Alright, gets in with the Goat, Fox Goat, the classic. 15 already. Oh, chooses not to ink to play the Goat, which I think makes sense. The Goat will be there either way.
Yeah, Amethyst doing what Amethyst does, bouncing and playing Goats.
Alright, cashes in the Shadowbug's Follower for 1 lore and a card. This is a tough race to win. You know, being on the back foot like this, you can't just quest with impunity, you have to be answering what's going on the other side as well. There's a Frenemy and a Maui, and a Shadowbug's Follower. Now, Frenemy, on the other hand, can allow us to race. Now, we know that from NIOIMNOT's side, we know that our opponent has just Goat in hand. So, they're going to be able to go up to 16, 17 if they play the Goat. Frenemy's going for 3, 4, 5 with the Genie. 6 puts us up to 17. It's a pretty close race. Cashes in the Shadowbug's Follower as well. It's a pretty common line in these mirrors, especially. The 2-1 body just is not that impactful at this point. Like, there's plenty of things that can challenge in and take it out. So you may as well just take your 1 lore, move on with it. It's one of the powerful parts of all the current 1-drops that see play is they can all just replace themselves with a different card. And Fox comes in, plays the Goat. Oh, doesn't play the Goat, plays double Smee.
Wow.
That might be worse than the Goat for Kendall here. With only 1 card in hand, the 3/3 bodies are pretty relevant, and that's representing lethal, so now the onus is on Kendall to either finish the game or call it game 2.
We'll see what he draws here off of this Chernobog's Followers, maybe finding an answer.
3 lore gained from that Frenemy, which is nice. Certainly the Maui helping out there. 3 cards in hand. Now they're going to have to be pretty good ones, because we know that there's a Goat in hand. So you have to take out both of these Smees. Obviously the Maui can take care of the Fox, so that helps, but, you know, letting him go up to 18 does not feel like a great spot to be, because then any bounce just takes us out. Now it can't be Fox, so it doesn't quite have enough ink to do Fox, so that does limit it just to snakes.
Maybe an Elsa here. No, it's a Belle, able to move the 3
that
damage
is
over.
a blowout here. Not only does that save the Maui from being vulnerable, which doesn't particularly matter at this point, but it also takes out one of those Smees. So we're in the spot where it's snake or bust. No snake. That'll do it.
That was very close.
It was a very close game, and I expect to see all three of these games, assuming that we go to 3, to be very close like that each time. Because they're both on, Amethyst, you're gonna end up finding these battles get down to, swing a fox here, swing a fox there, and then all of a sudden, they're within striking distance of just Goat taking it out.
Let's head on over to our match 1 to see Jeremiah piloting a Ruby Sapphire versus Markoth, who we saw yesterday during the Swiss rounds piloting a Amber Steel list. There's that supersonic aerial in hand that we've seen.
Now it looks like Blue-Red did, being the higher seed, have first play, and looks like it took down the first game, which, against the traditional Steel song is not that surprising to me.
Well, we'll go back over to our match number 2 that we're watching with NIOIMNOT, who is our community pro. All of his matches from the Swiss rounds will be available for you to watch later on this week on the 20 Lore Pro YouTube channel. Again, we want to thank some of our partners here for today's stream, one of them being Diamond Ink Apparel with their artist Miguel Angel. He did all of the amazing artwork that you see today on those playmats before you. Thank you so much, Diamond Ink Apparel and Miguel. Y'all did an amazing job with these playmats, with the artwork. Really great, and an homage to Azeroth Sea. We want to thank the printers of those playmats, GFQ Underground. GFQ Underground is your place for custom printing playmats. If you're in need of a custom mat and you'd like to have it printed, head on over to gfqunderground.com. And of course, we want to thank Charlie's Collectible Show for hosting today's Lorcana 10K tournament. Following today's top 8, we will have a 2K Lorcana tournament for all of you to watch. Thank y'all so much for joining us here today on Twitch. We really appreciate you. If you missed any of today's rounds or yesterday's, you can head over to 20 Lore Pro's YouTube, and we'll have all of those posted. Also, following the tournament, we'll have all of the VODs of the video up live on our Twitch and YouTube for your convenience. And we also want to thank Jebas from Ink Thieves for coming out. Really great to have you here in Stone Mountain, Georgia, flying out, staying with us. You've had a lot of traveling, and it's been great to be here with you today.
Yeah, it's been a good weekend. Fun casting, and we've been watching a lot of very interesting games, and this tournament is going to help shape sort of what the NA Continentals is going to look like as well. We saw the European Continentals, but North America always plays just a little bit different, and everybody's just sort of looking for information, and this is one of the best ways to get it.
Well, it's exciting to be here at Charlie's. Every time they host a tournament, it is a great location in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It's almost like an anime TCG cosplay convention on a weekly basis. If you're ever in the Atlanta area or in Stone Mountain itself, head on over to Charlie's. They are doing some amazing things. I even think today they have a couple of voice actors here in-house. One of them being the voice actress for Jinx for the popular Netflix television show. Pretty great that she's here now. So, pretty cool to see her. If you're ever in this area, I want to say last week they even had Kurt Angle here. So, you never know what type of IP that they're going to be have an event for. So, head on over to charliescollectibleshow.com to find out more of their upcoming events.
Alright, so we're finishing up adjusting hands here, and we're going to have the Amethyst Steel, used to Amber Steel, because that's all we've seen all weekend, it feels like. I think the majority of the top 8 is as well. So hopefully we get a little bit more diversity in our games other than just mirror matches all day, but they will be on the play this game. Satex should, being on the play, likely will win this one. But it's still pretty early to decide that, you know, it's really anybody's game. Especially in these purple decks, you just never know. Sometimes a run out of just a good curve into a few goats just takes care of it right away.
Yeah, and with this top 8, we don't have all the color pairings yet, but we did see during the Swiss rounds some Amethyst Emerald lists, which was pretty popular over in the EU Continentals. Saw, I want to say his name was SSG. He was playing it and piloting into the top tables, but I didn't see him into the top 8, so I don't know if any Amethyst Emerald list made it in.
Alright, leads off with a Maleficent here. And then a Shinobug's followers from NIOIMNOT. So a little bit more aggressive start from Tex. Wouldn't surprise me if Kendall would be willing to just trade that off to take out the higher lore gain character here. We'll see if it's even offered. You know, there's certainly more removal at the lower end coming out of the steel. So it's possible that he wants to be a little bit more conservative, use some of those removal spells to take him out. Is that the enchanted Yzma? I suspect that it is. From set 6. Lets you refill your hand up to 3. Oh, yep. Should be this one right here. But the enchanted copy. So if you have fewer than 3 cards in your hand, draw until you have 3 in your hand. A very powerful way of reloading your resources. Just drops a couple of 1-drops. Kendall does trade off the followers, kind of like we would suspect here. Frenemy is not the most exciting defensive card. But it is, you know, gets some body on the board at the 2-drop slot. Again, the 2-drops in red-purple are certainly much less powerful than the steel ones. Ends up drawing an extra card and then just taking out the Flynn Rider with a Fire the Cannons. Again, that slightly better low to the ground removal that I'm talking about here. Brawls the dock so that it can't get bounced. That's one of the things that Purple Steel has that some of the other Steel decks don't, is the ability to recur some of those more impactful come into play triggers. Or on cast, I suppose, in this case. Rabbit draws a card, so, you know, looking at all the cards that have been played so far, they're very similar parity-wise, but lore-wise they're not. You know, all of them sort of either draw a card or, you know, remove another card, but from NIOIMNOT's side, they're all just more costly, and they lore for a lot less. They're just not quite as defensive. Here's that Dragonfire again, taking out Gantu.
Wow.
Gantu's the lightning rod for those Dragonfires.
Yeah, no, I'm not just having that answer for that Gantu. I mean, we're seeing a back and forth here. This guy, a second Genie now.
That's a little rough. Just deploying threat after threat after threat. Pretty much every card drew another card when it came into play, so not a big surprise there. Now, I would hope, you know, something like a Medusa's coming down here to take out a Genie. Yep. Just quest with our Rabbit here, since we can't challenge Genie. But getting rid of at least some of the lore pressure that's on there, but Tex is already at 10, threatening another 3. And found a Doc to draw 2 cards.
Wow.
And a Pete, so no Be Prepared coming able to be cast the following turn. This is a very precarious position. Especially at 13, representing another, what, 2, 3, 9? There's a Fish Hook, giving Evasive to the Medusa. So this is another spicy one that we've seen from Kendall this weekend. Being able to actually challenge...
Giving it evasive, and then chosen character can get +3. I believe he's just playing one of this fishhook, but every time it's come out, such in this case, it helped him get out those genies.
Here's a goat, going up to 17. Alright, I'm expecting a be prepared here. Yep, here it is. Drawing an extra card with the rabbit. I mean, that's sort of our only out here, but that does take Tex all the way up to 17. So not a great place to be, even though, you know, as red-purple, it's somewhat stabilized. You never really feel super safe, given that almost everything is a big threat now.
I want to say this is Tex's third Diablo that he's had in play, if not fourth.
Alright, draw 2 cards. And draw another card with a genie here. Just sends it back. Alright, we'll see what else we're deploying here. A castle. Moves the Diablo into the castle as well. So this diversity of threats here with a location is pretty scary. Now, we do have the Maui's Fishhook in play already. But, you know, like I was saying, pretty much all of the cards here are big threats. So this Diablo is still a threat, even if, you know, we can combine all of the cards here to take out the castle. The Diablo still is able to gain another one. Now, any white rose or goat is just this game.
And there's at least 4 and 4, so the odds of him having it in hand when we haven't seen a white rose.
It's just another 1-drop, but that's still a lethal threat. We gotta wipe everything off here. I mean, Big Sisu is basically our best card in this spot, but even with that, I'm not sure that that's going to be fast enough, because you're also drawing them a card off the Diablo then, too. Now, I'm assuming... Okay, we draw 2 cards here. Now, some answers that we can have for this board... we can bounce the Elsa, replay the Elsa to take out the Broom. Tremaine works. You know, you just have to take out all the cards. They did get to draw an extra one, so, you know, we're in a very, very rough spot from red-purple side.
Now, just being able to play double cards on Texas side of the board would really be a great follow-up here, because NIOIMNOT has had to use quite a bit of his removal. Able to play a snake.
Bounce the Elsa. Plays 2 threats. Not a big surprise there. Either you have the goat or you play 2 things, basically. And as we know, the Elsa's able to manage 1 threat at a time, but not 2. It's like we're drawing another 2 cards. Not exactly what we want to be doing. You know, again, we're still at 2 lore.
Any one of these turns, Tex is able to draw into a goat or a white rose.
Assuming that Kendall's even able to clear the whole board every single round. The Big Sisu doesn't do it here anymore, and Be Prepared looks like maybe is the answer, but it doesn't feel great, because then the board is just clear. Like, we gotta win the game at some point.
I believe that's one more card in Tex's hand as well.
I would assume it's a removal spell of some sort. Something, maybe a strength. Something that's not that exciting here. And Be Prepared. But that's what you gotta do when you're at this tough of a spot.
Does still have the Elsa in hand. So anything that Tex does play, he will be able to tap it down at least. Hopefully, it's a 2-power, because if not, there's a oh, he's looking through his discard pile.
And it could always be, too, that he's just keeping another, individual threat in hand. Because the reality is that... Oh, well, there you go.
There's the white rose, yep.
Alright. Never didn't have it. Looks like he's taking a quick break. We'll jump over to the other game while we wait for them to get ready for their last match.
And here's Jeremiah versus Markoth. 18 on the board right now for Markoth on his side,
So
to Jeremiah's 2.
a similar situation to what we saw on the other side, where one deck was the aggressor and has gotten into a pretty, close to victory spot, and the other one just has a lot of resources and is really trying to close out at some point. Though, Tamatoa can absolutely finish games much more quickly than most.
Look at that, Maleficent took off an off-camera aerial.
Now, I'm assuming that it's kind of just deploy whatever threats we've got every round until the game is over. Now, paying 5, it's likely Beast. I didn't actually see what the card was, and he's playing him a little bit far to the side here. Not a big deal. It's kind of on Jeremiah to have an answer to pretty much whatever card. Anything that costs, 4 or more basically can quest for 2, so we're assuming a lethal threat is presented. Now, Jeremiah can likely close out the game pretty quickly. However, you gotta live until that. Tamatoa, great at closing out the game, but sometimes that is just not good enough. Looks like there's another dragon. Dragon takes out... That was a Robin Hood.
Off-camera Robin, yeah.
That was a Robin Hood. That makes sense. Robin is just as good of a threat as any. So takes out the Robin, quests, gains a bit of lore here, gets another item back, and says go. Another 5 cost, plus a 1 cost Robin. So we're at 8, we're representing 12. If we have a dime, plus whatever item we got back, it's possible that we can just close out the game now. Don't know how many 1 cost items that they've already got in play.
And on our previous match, congratulations to Kindle, aka No I'm Not, for winning game 1, and then on game 2, we saw the win from Tex with that white rose, so they are going to go into a game 3 over there on match number 2.
Alright, there's Sisu cleans up the board. It's like we've probably got a shield from the other side to untap the Tamatoa. Presenting lethal, doing a whole new world. See if there's enough of a follow-up to not just be done here. Nope. Alright, that's it. Jeremiah will take that set. We can go back and jump over to the other one. So it looks like we'll see at least one blue-red. The first of maybe many amber steel. Alright. So they're just shuffling up, getting ready for their final game here. So now in this, we'll have Kendall being on the play, most likely, since he lost in game 2, which certainly does matter quite a bit in this matchup in particular, mostly because, all of their cards are very similar. Generally, Tex is representing much higher lore density per character, but with the Ruby cards giving us, you know, some board wipes from things like Be Prepared, you know, Big Sisu, and then the very powerful things like Maui to, you know, clean up more than one card at a time. Once they get to that point in the game, that can kind of spell disaster for the Amethyst Steel. But there's a lot more card draw in Steel with Doc, plus, you know, plus the rabbits, plus the genies, plus most of the one-drops replacing themselves. And even the Yzma that we saw, there's a lot of ways of refilling the hand to have a lot more gas than what we are looking at right now. We'll have to see how this plays out. Again, the first few turns are very, very important for this matchup, because it sort of dictates the tempo of the rest of the game. It is a little exciting to see a color pairing that is not just what we've seen kind of on a lot of the rest of the games this weekend. I do think that Amethyst Steel is probably some of the best that it's ever been. Getting to play cards like Calhoun, Genie, the White Rose, that's a lot of set 6 cards, a lot more than most of the decks are able to actually fit in, and those are definitely some of the best ones. Genie probably being certainly in the top 5 cards of the set, and I think you could very easily argue that it is one of the best cards in the set for set 6, at least for constructed purposes. Replacing itself, being a 2/4, you know, questing for 2, being evasive, all those things in combination together make it just such an impactful card. Now, it doesn't necessarily take over every game on its own, but it has warped the metagame in that if you're not prepared to deal with it in your list, it might just be too much for you to handle if they play 1 or 2 of them on curve. So adjusting our hands here, it looks like we see that Dragonfire in Kendall's hand again. Likely something that's going to get sent back. Being uninkable, it is not the most exciting card to have in your opener, but we'll see if it gets shuffled back in and shows up for the Gantu again. Alright, just the final shuffle up, and then they will kick this off here.
Well, we're excited to be here at Charlie's Collectible Show for their Lorcana 10K. Really excited to have over 215 players compete in today's tournament. We're here in the top 8 in your feature match 2 with our Community Pro, chosen by you, the 20 Lore Pro community, over on our Discord. Here we go with our first turn from Kendall with a turn 1 Broom.
Alright, yeah, that turn 1 play, it seems very important in this matchup. You know, if you miss your turn 1, that often means that you don't always have something available for turn 2. You know, the Steel deck might, but unless you've got a frenemy, there's really not that many cards available. So I would expect a Snake here bouncing that back. The 3/3 body is very relevant in this matchup. Gets rid of a Bell. Now, I don't know how many Bells Kendall is playing, so that is something to note, that resource won't be available. Ooh, that is a big play here. So that's Befuddle, set 1 card. Befuddle just says return a character or item with cost 2 or less their player's hand. Now, since we already returned something with Snake in the Broom, that ends up being kind of a 2-for-1. It's a bit of a blowout. The 3/3 body on Snake is very powerful, but if you lose it from a Befuddle, that is a huge, huge tempo swing. And it effectively steals the play draw back for Tex here. Leads out on a Crab, mostly because, you know, we're not as worried about challenging in this matchup, but then it allows you to do something like, say, Fox and bounce it, be able to challenge up a little bit higher. You know, you can even just Crab straight in and then get that trigger from the from when it gets banished and just use it that way. comes the Genie, number 1 for the matchup. Now, I'm assuming we're challenging the Maleficent. Yep. So it is vulnerable to the Crab, but I think we're probably happy if the Sisu trades with 2 cards.
Yeah, especially after getting 2 for 1 by Befuddle earlier on, you need to get every 2 for 1 you can get on your side of the board.
Yeah, now there is a world where Tex can ink, play out basically the whole hand, and the Crab can live and still take out that Sisu. Now, I think that's a risk that that Kendall's willing to take here. You can't really afford to play around that line anyway. Now, cashing in the Shernabug's followers means that that's not necessarily what's going to happen here, but that was a possibility. And decides to just play a Genie of their own. That makes sense. And honestly, if they're playing a Genie here, I would expect them to do nothing with the Crab and say go. This means that the Crab does threaten, in combination with the Genie, to actually challenge the Genie on the other side. So I feel like this is going to be a Genie battle a bit. Oh, Elsa comes down. Elsa, one of the strongest Amethyst additions from the previous set here. The 5th Spirit having just a litany of abilities with Rush and Evasive, and when it comes into play, it exerts an opposing character. That is just a huge amount of impactful effects all on the same card. Combining together with the Genie takes out the opposing Genie. So this might be back in Kendall's seat.
Yeah, that was a scary situation there for just a moment when you could have a Crab with a Genie in combination take out your opposing Genie and leaving Kendall without his evasive character, but great to have this Elsa 5th Spirit on his side of the board.
That is not a great spot to be for Tex here. Looks like his hand is maybe just full of a lot of foxes. I'm surprised that we, having a 1-drop, decided to bounce the Crab, though I suppose we want to use the Crab's effect to try and leverage that again, but we did have the line where we could have played the 1-drop and Fox that instead, kept the 3/3 in play. Maybe not worried about the 3/3 anyway, and would rather have the effect in hand. Here's a Rabbit. Kind of burying our poor Amethyst Steel player in card advantage at this point. Now, Tex does have quite a few cards in hand, but a bit less ink as well, so
yeah, at this point with Amethyst Ruby having that many cards in their inkwell, you kind of want to be at least a little bit higher on your lore count at this stage for Amethyst Steel. We'll see though, with the number of cards he has in hand.
For that turn 2 Befuddle play to really matter a ton, you have to be able to leverage it with enough lore gain outside of it, because it's a purely tempo play, because it is card disadvantage. Though, it does bounce it back. We're still cards down, because they just were in his hand instead. So the tempo on the board, it just isn't here anymore. It's gone. After all those cards were eaten up by the Elsa and now these foxes, this is the 3rd fox that we've seen now. So I think his hand was just full of foxes, and they are good in this matchup, and you want to be able to see them, but they really don't interact very favorably with all these evasives. This Elsa and this Genie are questing with impunity, and they might be able to do that forever here.
And now another Genie on board.
Another Genie is pretty brutal. Now, I don't know Tex's whole list. If we have something like Grab Your Swords, even that is just not going to be enough to catch up here. Kendall's going to probably swing out, go up to 10 already, with 5 evasive in the air. So far ahead that we're inking Brawl, as a card, which obviously there's not a great set of Brawl targets on board, but this looks pretty rough.
Yeah, I think we're at a stage here where NIOIMNOT has really presented so many threats that are, with his lore count being at 10, now need to get answered by Tex.
If we're honest, this has not really been an Amber Steel versus Amber Ruby. This has been Amber versus Amber. Because if we look at the board, it's purple over here, purple over there, purple down here. The red card that we had as Sisu could have been any purple card. It would have been about the same. So really what we're seeing is an on-the-play Amber deck versus an on-the-draw Amber deck. And
the Amethyst decks are just...
Amethyst. Goodness. Purple. We're just gonna call it purple now.
They really are showing you why the power of the bounce package with the evasiveness has really made it a powerful color in addition to whatever you're going to pair it with.
Yeah, it just doesn't need the other color. So if you look at all of the top, color pairings across the board, purple shows up 5 times, which means that it is able to be paired with every color in the game and be a competitive deck, which is incredible. And not all of it has been from just set 2. Obviously the set 2 package of essentially what came in the pre-con, right? Foxes and such were very strong. Here's that big Sisu again, just being a huge blowout. I don't think that there's much left of this game. The double Genie plus the big Sisu is probably going to be too much. I believe that's the Yzma. Yzma's great when you're ahead, but does not do anything when you're on the draw. Yeah, that hand is rough.
Yeah.
A little bit of removal that's just not enough.
There was some lines of play here with Tex with the Befuddle where he really started off where he has cards, he was protecting them. If he could have had some lower cost characters like the Mr. Smees, the Maleficents, to get those early questing in while trying to tempo your opponent with Befuddle with what you're doing, could have got that lore on the board earlier on to where he could have had a chance here in the later stages of the game, but just couldn't really find that after the Befuddle.
I mean, Gripful of Foxes just is not it. Mm-mm. If you're looking to have a very high tempo aggro run out and you're playing a bunch of, more or less defensive, low tempo, at least low lore on the board, Fox is great, but Fox doesn't really push a lot of lore on its own. If the play was Befuddle and then drop 2 or 3 Maleficents or something, then all of a sudden, they're able to gain 10 to 16 lore before they get to that point in the game. Sully only was able to collect up to 9, and the evasive battlers from NIOIMNOT and the Genies and the Elsa, just too much.
We want to thank everyone so much for coming here today to view and to watch the top 8 match. NIOIMNOT did an amazing job as our community pro. Seems like the community really did choose a great pro to watch because we have a ton of matches to watch later on this week of NIOIMNOT's matches. So congratulations to Kindle for making it into the top 4. Excited to see kind of who comes out on top here today. We've seen NIOIMNOT win one of these Charlie's Collectible shows before in the past. We'll see if he can maybe do it here again today. We're here again live with 20 Lore Pro at Charlie's Collectible Show for their 10K tournament. Don't leave after the finals because we have a 2K tournament following today's coverage. Very excited to see how that plays out. We're here live with myself, SirAshtown, and Jebas from Ink Thieves.
That's me.
Been doing some great commentary today. Excited to be here. We want to thank GFQ Underground for printing today's mats and Diamond Ink Apparel for doing the artwork. Those are some beautiful prizes that the top 4 players will receive. The top 2 at the 2K tournament will also be receiving those playmats. So we just want to thank y'all again so much for watching today's tournament. We'll see y'all here in just a little bit.